talking about street graffiti and illegal graffiti. And I think that was part of what really attracted me to it in the beginning, was the fact that it wasn't just random acts of vandalism. It was controlled acts of vandalism. It was like just doing it once is nothing. It's the repetition that counts.
The world's cities are scratched with the names of millions of graffiti writers. Spray cans, paint markers, sharpies, or even fire extinguishers can be used to express yourself or simply inform people of your existence. Like any subculture, prolific names tend to boil to the surface. New York has Scene, Berlin has One Up, and in London, we have 10 Foot. In the late 1800s, America's train cars and highway underpasses were marked with the names of hobos and railway workers in the form of monikers. A moniker was used as a subtle and discreet way of communicating an idea. The date it was written, your personality, and direction of travel were all prominent features that allow people to gain an understanding of who you are. Because of the questionable legality of hopping trains, people often used aliases. As this practice became more common, these anonymous characters became notorious in the hobo community. Through the decades, this idea has mutated and developed, through one form or another, into what is known today as tagging. Tagging is the simple act of writing your name on something, usually public property and hardly ever legally. The form that we're all familiar with today could be dated back to Philadelphia in the late 1960s.
Philadelphia was the first place that started an international street subculture art with graffiti. It didn't start nowhere else but in Philadelphia with a guy named Cornbread the Legend.
By the 70s, it had worked its way up the East Coast and exploded in New York. Prominent figures in the early days were people like Tacky 183 and Tracy 168, who were among the first people to employ that signature style that we are all familiar with today. Tagging still exists today as a statement of individuality and as a form of group consciousness. Tags, throw-ups and full pieces can be found painted across most cities on the planet, acting as markers of successful adventures into urban labyrinths. Due to the high number of participants, standing out from the crowd is understandably improbable. A common way to get your tag noticed is by writing it somewhere difficult to access. However, another tried and tested method appears to be the most successful. That method is repetition. The more you see a person's name, the more recognisable it becomes. And there is none more recognisable in London than 10 Foot. Emerging in the early 2000s, at a time when London was already rich with tagging talent, 10 Foot came onto the scene and cemented himself as a force to be reckoned with, throwing his name onto every blank surface he could find, usually railway bridges, phone boxes, and train yard sidings. Today it's become difficult to walk in London without regularly coming into contact with the work of 10 Foot. Whether intentional or not, his watchful presence can be felt by everyone. An affiliate of the diabolical Dubstars crew, 10 Foot and his fellow DDS writers appear to have unlimited access passes to all of London's strictly off-limit areas, their collective work appearing in places that leave authorities and fans alike questioning their apparent ability to walk through walls. A particularly potent example of this was the invasion of Oxford Circus's Victoria and Bakerloo line platforms in the early hours of Boxing Day 2020. Each platform was redecorated in a way that only the DDS crew could. Grenfell memorial pieces and political satire at a time when Downing Street was occupied by Partygate Tories. No one knows how they managed to gain access to a deep-level station in central London. These particular tunnels leave barely enough room between the trains and the walls for a mouse to squeak through, not to mention the high-voltage third rail between your legs. Venturing into these tunnels while trains are in operation is certain death, but with the right keys and an in-depth knowledge of security guard shift patterns, maybe it's feasible. It's likely, though, that us mere mortals will never know how they gained access to such an inaccessible part of the city. As far as I can tell, Tenfoot was not part of this mission. His work can't be seen in any of the videos, and you would think that such a daring heist would mean ample Tenfoot tags. He talks in an amazing Financial Times article written by Miles Ellingham about the dangers of these deep tunnels. We've been in the tunnels before and heard the wind coming towards us, and run and run and run. You just have to hope there's an alcove or something. It's anyone's guess why he wasn't there. Perhaps something of this scope bears too much risk. Or maybe he was at home, celebrating Christmas with his family. When comparing 10-foot tags with hobo monikers, it appears that much like the hobos of the 1800s, Tenfoot, perhaps unintentionally, is sharing something about himself through his name. The name Tenfoot was originally believed to be a reference to the distance that separates train tracks. However, it is confirmed that the moniker simply refers to his notable height. He's been described as having the perfect build for graffiti writing, very tall with long arms that can paint high on walls and aid in scaling train yard fences. In 2010, he was arrested and later convicted for committing over £100,000 worth of damages. Because of this, he was sent to prison for 26 months. For many, it's unclear why graffiti writers would take such high risk for little to no reward. While it's not clear how you can work a regular job and still have the ability to spend every night out writing, when asked, Tenfoot responded to the question of his income by simply saying crime. Whatever that may entail, unlike a lot of his fellow writers, being the capital's most prolific definitely comes with some perks. Tenfoot has had a collab with Palace and shared a pop-up with Goldie. At this South London pop-up in 2023, DIY t-shirts were made that sported his signature tag with crink-style drips. Thanks to Tenfoot's popularity and Goldie's charm, it only took 45 minutes for the t-shirts to sell out. He has even had some of his work in the Saatchi Gallery, being featured in its Beyond the Street exhibition. Maybe all of this means that Tenfoot has started moving towards the fine art world. This has less merit when you consider that Tenfoot is not a street artist. He's been very outspoken in his disdain for the art world, writing over a couple of Banksy pieces to make his views clear. At the end of the day, he's a graffiti writer, and one of the biggest pulls when it comes to his audience is his authenticity. Jade Wicks of The Face magazine writes, "Other brands pretend to be outside of the mainstream, but are pseudo-genuine. In reality, they have private equity support and factory-produced mass production. Tenfoot has a brand profile to match, but with none of the snideness or sarcasm. It's genuinely genuine." If he were to create a fully-fledged streetwear brand, start hosting Banksy-esque warehouse shows, or creating paintings that sell at Sotheby's for millions, the respect of the culture he has worked so hard to be a part of would surely dwindle. It's worth mentioning that Tenfoot, of course, is not the only graffiti writer in London. He shares his walls with at least 2,000 others. Notable names such as Tox, Fume, Flash, Fatso, Jet 97 and Baz can all be found scrawled across the city. Certain names in certain areas becoming fixtures of your daily life in London. For some reason, Tenfoot's name, for better or worse, has risen to be London's most abundant. Despite Tenfoot's notoriety in London, his name can be found written in at least 53 cities all around the world. There are whole Instagram accounts dedicated to spotting and sharing images of his work. It seems that for everyone who has noticed, there is a certain shared familiarity and warmth upon finding his name. So next time you're commuting to work, travelling through a foreign city, or simply noticing the world around you, look up, and you will likely find Tenfoot, transcribed high for all to see. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. It really means a whole lot. I am going to include some links down below of some further reading. If you're interested in learning more about the sort of private life of Tenfoot, then I would highly recommend this article by Miles Ellingham in the Financial Times. I mentioned it in the video, but it's definitely worth going and having a look at. It goes into more detail about Tenfoot's sort of private life, which I didn't think was appropriate for me to cover in this video. Also, Jade Wick's article on the Tenfoot pop-up shop. Definitely go have a look. There's loads of great images. And finally, I kind of just wanted to talk about a website called LDN Graffiti. I'm not sure who runs it or anything, but it's basically a huge archive. It's got a huge archive of essentially every graffiti writer in London. It's amazing. Go and have a look. There's thousands and thousands of images. I've used a bunch in this. Hope that's okay. Apart from that, let me know what you think. And yeah, thank you so much for watching.